Hey, what's up guys, TotaliDubs here, and today I'm doing a video review on the Iyama ProLite XB2779 QQS. Not to be mistaken with the QS version, which is the WQHD version. Now this monitor is a 27-inch 5K monitor. In terms of its price, it can be found for around £770 on Amazon.co.uk and a ridiculous $2,100 because it has to be imported on Amazon USA. Links will be down in the description below. Now before getting into the specs, in terms of its competitor, it's got the Philips 27-inch 5K. I previously reviewed that around 800 and 900 odd pounds, but now it's around 1,240 pounds. There's also the LG Ultrafine 5K that's 1,179 pounds. So comparatively, the Iyama right now at the time of making this video is actually quite cheap. Now what do you get for the price? Well, it's a 27-inch IPS display. It runs at a max resolution or native resolution at 5120 x 2880, and yes, you can downscale it to 1080p or WQHD if you so wish. It runs at 60 Hz. It has a quoted response time of 4 milliseconds, and in terms of the other specs, they'll be down in the description below. For example, it's got two HDMI inputs, three HDMI inputs and two DisplayPort inputs, which are V1.4, which means that you can drive the monitor with one single DisplayPort input as long as your graphics card also supports the newer standard of DisplayPort. The reason I mention that is because the Philips monitor that I had previously mentioned has to run two DisplayPort cables from the graphics card to the display in order to output 5K. In this case, only one DisplayPort cable is needed. Finally, there is a 3.5mm jack headphone output and two 2.5 watt speakers which are built in, and the speakers are absolutely decent for normal Windows notification or whatnot, or basic music listening, although they can be a little bit sibilant at times. Now let's move on to the build quality. Now the monitor's build quality is very much reminiscent of the iMac Pro. Not only due to the wallpaper I've chosen, but mainly because of its look and in terms of its bezels. I'm somewhat disappointed that Iyama have chosen this sort of this display or this type of a finish, because they could just differentiate themselves a little bit from the Apple equivalent. Because when I got this out, it just genuinely looks like an iMac Pro. Now in terms of the top, there's massive bezels, black bezels, which is a little bit distracting from the screen. Not something I've been a fan of on the Apple equivalent, on the Apple iMacs. I just would have liked something just a little thinner bezels, given that we're in 2018. We could have a three-sided borderless design, which would make this monitor look absolutely spectacular. Nevertheless, at the bottom you've got a silver design, and then you've got touchscreen controls. Now I'm not a big fan of the touchscreen controls personally, but in this respect, the Iyama touchscreen controls actually work pretty flawlessly and have no sort of problems. In terms of the monitor itself, it's got height, tilt, and full pivot adjust. And what's quite interesting about this monitor versus other monitors that can actually rotate is the fact that it can be constantly rotated. Whereas most monitors just kind of lock in one way, this one can be constantly rotated, which I can't show you right here because of my desk, but nevertheless, you can just take my word for it. Other than that, the monitor looks sleek at the back. It's just got a standard black design, like a matte black finish, a plastic design. The stand itself is sturdy enough; it doesn't give there's not too much wobble on the monitor itself. One thing I should mention, which will go into the image quality section as well, is the fact that this monitor has a glossy display. If you're not really aware of what a glossy display is, it's just the fact that most monitors have got a matte display, so therefore when you're looking at it, or if you have sunlight coming in, you're not going to notice a reflection, whereas this has a glossy display. Now the reason behind this, and the reason why more pro-level monitors have a glossy display, is because you get much better, deeper blacks being portrayed with a glossy display over a matte display. So it's understandable why they've chosen this, and it's the same thing with other monitors in its class, and for example the iMac has the same sort of glossy display as well. So just bear that in mind. It is also a fingerprint magnet at the top or around the sides. You will notice that it will pick up fingerprints very, very quickly. So now let's talk about the OSD, and after going to the OSD, we'll talk about the over picture quality. I'm just reducing the EV on my monitor and just bring you guys a little bit closer so you guys can see. So the OSD, as you can see, the touchscreen controls just adjusted like so, and over here you'll have a full set of controls. And I must say that Yamaha have done a good job over here in terms of including everything. So for example, you can enable X-Res technology. X-Res technology is something that's kind of like, not like an upscaler, but it allows you to see images a little bit sharper than they actually would do. You got Eco mode, overdrive at +1, which I'll get into in just a bit. You got PIP PBP mode as well, which you can enable. Audio setting, as I said. Color mode, so you've got different color modes. In my case, I used user color. iStyle color as well is quite useful. I used it on standard, which came out quite nice. And then you've obviously got the blue light reducer, so it's a flicker-free monitor with a blue light filter that can be added on. You've got 3 separate levels in terms of that. Then your OSD settings, and then the setup menu, you've got the opening logo, which you can disable, and the LED, which is just over here by the power button, that can be also disabled. And other than that, that's pretty much it. So it's got a comprehensive OSD, and the colors can be adjusted by RGB presets. Just one thing I should mention though, it hasn't got advanced color gain settings, and neither has it got, as far as I'm aware, from what I could tell, it hasn't got any gamma settings, which will put off some people who are video editors or people working in different sort of gamma with different gamma profiles. So just bear that in mind with the monitor's OSD in terms of its settings. So now let's most importantly talk about its panel quality, its display. So obviously it's got an IPS display and it's a 5K resolution. And how does it perform? Well, looking through these images, and these are free wallpapers that I got online. If you literally look for 5K wallpapers, you'll find these ones. And I must say, going through these images, I felt that the images were very vibrant, very punchy, very beautiful to look at. Obviously, due to the 5K resolution, just the definition over here is just a lot better than your average 1080p QHD or even 4K display. But looking at the colors specifically, the contrast ratio is decent. It could be a little bit better, but in terms of the colors themselves, they really pop out and are full of life. Now, I did put the monitor through a calibrator, and I was slightly surprised at the results I found. So over here, you won't be able to tell over here. If I just bring it just a little closer, you're able to see that I've got a 99% sRGB gamut coverage with a 97.2 DCI-P3, 85% Adobe RGB. Obviously, the gamut volume is a lot better, so it's really calibrated, as far as I can tell, to the gamut volume of Adobe RGB and the gamut coverage of sRGB. So it does cover a wide gamut scale of different sorts of gamuts as well, which is quite impressive to see this. And just to let you know, I did these tests on the standard color profile, so there's no sort of extra calibration or tweaking that I did. I just went for what the monitor came out with out the box. Now, in terms of how it does in terms of the color accuracy, this is where I was a little bit surprised. Now, given the fantastic results in the sRGB and the gamut profiles, I was a little bit surprised to see an average delta E of 3.2 with a maximum delta E of 6.79. So despite the colors looking vibrant and really punchy, the colors weren't that accurate, and you can see from the calibrator over here, the results are quite skewed off, which is something a little bit surprising for a monitor that costs around £700–800, or a monitor that's trying to compete with monitors which are a little bit more expensive. So the reds were particularly off. You've got a little bit of variance on the greens, oranges, and even in terms of the darker profiles, such as the greys and whites, they again weren't quite there and a little bit off. Again, very surprising to see these results, given the fact that this monitor is aimed for professionals, and given its competitors, and given the fact that it does look nice in terms of its vibrant colors, but that doesn't mean that it's color accurate. Now, will this matter if you're going to be watching movies or looking at just your average Joe pictures, or I don't know, browsing Facebook or things like that? Absolutely not. There'll be no problem in the color accuracy. It's not a big deal for people like that. However, if you're a photo or video editor, which you're going to be working and using this monitor in terms of a professional grade editing, then you're going to be concerned about these results, simply because You don't want a monitor that is not portraying the colors that will be outputted when you print it in a massive scale, or you send it to your boss or whatnot, and when the colors are a little bit skewed off, or if you've got projects you have to work on. So it's just something to bear in mind. In terms of the brightness uniformity, it is actually relatively good, but it is a little bit skewed on the top left hand side with a minus 9.5% variance from the center point. Other than that, the results are good. Not quite pro level good, but they're good in terms of your average Joe monitor. Now finally, in terms of gaming, I did play some games on it, such as Counter-Strike, and it actually does a really good job. An overdrive set to +1, it does a fantastic job in terms of responding well, and is able to actually work quite well for sort of competitive gaming. Now obviously this is 60 Hz, 1080, 60 Hz, 5K panel, so I don't expect people to be competitively gaming on a monitor like this, but nevertheless it's just something worth mentioning, because a lot of 5K monitors or high resolution display monitors won't have the capability of actually being good for games. So if you're looking to play a more casual game or whatnot, then this monitor will be actually quite good for you. It's quite surprising, because normally I wouldn't expect as I said, 5K monitor to respond well, but in terms of its response time, it actually does a good job. As I said, Overdrive +1 was good. Overdrive +2 does have a little bit of inverse ghosting, and obviously overshoot ghosting and purple hazes that you can notice such as on certain walls. But you know, if you're going to use it competitively for some reason, then of course use Overdrive +2. But given the fact this is going to be aimed at casual gamers like this looks like myself, where you need an entire clip to kill one enemy, then it will be fine to use it at Overdrive +1. In terms of its input lag, it's decent. I had no sort of complaints with it. It responds really well, and you know, flicking left to right, it's just quite good. So overall, in terms of gaming performance, I would actually recommend it for casual gamers. I've absolutely no problem with it. The monitor responds quite well. So overall, what do I think of the monitor? Well, in all honesty, I think it's a good 5K monitor. It's not the best, but it's definitely a good 5K monitor. Now, given the fact there's not many 5K monitors out there, it's quite hard to really compare it to a monitor that costs around £400 more than it, which is almost, you know, half the price extra of this monitor. But still, if you're looking for a 5K monitor for video or photo editing, then you're going to be looking for all the pros and cons of a monitor. In this case, it's not a color accurate monitor, despite having a really fantastic gamut coverage in Adobe RGB, sRGB, and DCI-P3. If, however, you're looking for a 5K monitor and you just want an upgrade over a 4K monitor, or you got the money to spend on a monitor and you just want that extra resolution, then this monitor, in terms of a casual use, both in terms of gaming or in terms of your just average browsing or watching you know, 5K content for some reason, if there is any 5K content that exists, then this monitor is absolutely perfect for you, because it does a fantastic job. It looks great, not only in terms of its panel, in terms of its gamut coverage as well, which makes the panel look great, although not too accurate. It also, in terms of the build quality and design, it actually looks quite professional and looks like a monitor you could place in a very expensive setting. So if you're looking for an affordable 5K monitor, then this definitely is it. Just bear in mind the limitations that I pointed out in this video, and hopefully they will give you an informed buying decision in case you're looking for a 5K monitor. So there we go, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this review. Make sure you give it a like, comment, subscribe, as it always helps the channel grow. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the monitor, or of any other 5K monitors. I'll be very intrigued to know. And there we go. I've been Totally Dubbed. Take care, and bye-bye.